Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. What if Naruto was born with an Angal bloodline? Part 16. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this and comment for next part. And now let's start the fanfic. My Otu-san. He tells me I am weak and am not worthy of the name Hyuga. Otu-san says my little sister is stronger than I am, T2. Hinata stuttered out. Naruto frowned at that before looking towards her teacher. Is this true? He asked with Kurenai nodding her head. Yes, I've known Hinata since she was a child and I've taken care of her almost all the time when her father doesn't want anything to do with. I've seen him say things to her that most children would cry at the moment they heard it. She said with Naruto nodding before he spoke. I will take care of her father, but I want you to find her someone that will help her through her problems. Someone that has a high amount of confidence in them to break her from her shell. He said with the red-eyed woman nodding before she asked something that the blonde was pretty sure he knew was coming. So, can you tell me more about my clan? My grandparents migrated here with my father before they were killed, so we never knew of our family. She said with Naruto looking at her before he spoke. Unfortunately, I can't tell you until you're at a point where you can handle a sword properly. If you wish to be serious about learning from your clan, come seek me out. I'm not too hard to find. He said before he walked away from the group of three since Kiba was still out of it. Kurenai watched the boy walk away before she looked at Hinata and saw the girl was pushing her fingers together with a strong blush on her face. She couldn't like him, could she? But then again, he is very interesting. Kurenai thought to herself before she found herself thinking about the mysterious blonde boy that walked away. Elsewhere. Council chambers. Sarutobi sat in his seat, as the Konoha Council was currently discussing what they should do concerning the approaching Chunin exams arriving this year. The old man was listening to the shinobi's take on what to do for the proctor selection while the civilians talked about festivities and all that other nonsense. More would have been said had the sounds of scuffling not been heard outside and the doors burst off its hinges and landed in the center of the room. The councilman then looked up to find the form of Naruto walking into the room with his cold calculating eyes. Which one of you is the head of the Hyuga clan? He asked before looking around and locked eyes with the only one with all white eyes. Said man looked in shock as Naruto looked at him as if he was peering through his soul. Are you the head of the Hyuga clan? He asked with the man nodding his head, although everyone was wondering exactly what the blonde was doing here. Yes I am, what is it that you wish to discuss to me? He said with Naruto's eyes giving a colder feeling than before. It's come to my attention that your daughter has a bit of a problem in gaining strength. Would you like to know of a way to better her strength? He asked the man, who was taken aback by the stare the blonde boy was giving him. It was almost as if the boy held the eyes of God, the one being that could judge all those before him. Yes. I want my daughter to grow in strength but she doesn't seem to be able to do it. What is it that you know will help her? He asked in a respectful tone. Your treatment of your daughter, Hyuga Hinata. He said with the man scowling at the boy. And what is it that gets you involved in family affairs? He said with his eyes becoming the Byakugan in a flash. To most, this would intimidate them to the point where they would crap themselves. However, Naruto responded without missing a beat and simply increased the intensity in his eyes. It gets me involved when a coward uses his own fears against his offspring. He said with the man blowing a casket and stood on his feet. How dare you call me a coward and tell me how to be a father, just who the hell do you think you are? He said with his voice raising in volume while the others watched on in wonder. Whoever this kid was, he knew how to handle the presence of one of the Leaf's strongest shinobi. Naruto's eyes then turned into a glare as he slowly started to leak killing intent. I'm the guy that doesn't take too kindly to cowards, that hides behind his problems and takes his emotions out on his child. I can see the way your aura consistent shifts when you think on your daughter. You wonder if you are doing the right thing. You wonder if your way truly is the right way for her growth. Do you know what I see in that girl? A person that can truly make the Hyuga clan stronger than ever, yet her spineless father is too much of a coward to truly help her. Shut up. I am the one who will make Hinata stronger. Not some blonde-haired gaki from a clan of nobodies. Hiyashi spat out. Naruto was now snarling in anger as steam began to escape his mouth. You will not speak of master that way, you coward. He was 5 times the father than you will ever be. He said with Hiyashi finally losing it. He felt his pride get injured by that and needed to make an example. He charged at Naruto with an open palm ready to strike the blonde boy, who simply stood still with his hands near one of his sheathed swords. When Hiyashi neared him, Naruto quickly drew his sword and slashed near the Hyuga head's right collarbone. Naruto quickly sheathed his sword before turned to find Hiyashi screaming in pain and grabbing his shoulder blade. Naruto then walked over to the man, who glared at him and sent his left arm at Naruto's chest, only to be shocked when the boy grabbed his arm and shoved his boot into the man's chest. Look at you Hyuga, so arrogant in your bloodline and your clan itself that you failed to notice the weakness of your very style. The Jiyuken style is made to assumption that the user's enemies is weaker along with their moves being precise. If the user so much as flares an emotion, then the style becomes useless and the user is in trouble. As I just showed you that I know the weakness of your style, however you can improve it as long as you change your attitude. He said before he did some seals and held his hand over the man's wound. Hiyashi watched as green chakra appeared in the boy's hand before seeing the wound inflicted on him vanish. The man looked on in confusion before Naruto spoke. I can see it in your eyes Hyuga-san, the desire to help your daughter succeed in life and the love you have for her in your cold heart. You can do it Hyuga-san, but you must change the field for the seed to turn into a beautiful flower. He said as he stood up and prepared to take his leave but was stopped by the voice of one Inuzuka-sume. Wait boy, what is your name? She asked with Naruto pausing for a moment before he spoke. Uzumaki Naruto. He said with everyone gasping at that, before the eyes narrowed at him, though only one had the balls to show it. You damn dirty demon, how dare you return to the village after you abandoned us? Said a civilian council member with Naruto looking his way, his cold eyes making him feel like his legs were possessed by spirits and couldn't stop shaking. I was 6 years old dipshit, plus doesn't abandonment mean that I was needed at the time and left without even so much as a notice? He asked with the man snarling at that smartass remark before he continue on. You could have spilled our secrets to another village that is plotting to destroy us, he said with Naruto still looking him in the eye. What you are trying to imply is that I could have told someone like Kumo the number of shinobi, level of defenses, village structure, and weak points that are so juicy that they would believe a 6-year-old civilian. Does that sound like something any smart leader would do? He said with the same man scowling at him and would have continued his banter had a shinobi councilman not raised his hand to silence him. You have quite the knowledge of shinobi villages at such a young age Naruto-san, can you please explain how you know it? Aburame Shibi said with Naruto answering the man that Naruto identified as an Aburame. I was taken in by my master when I left the village 6 years ago. Under his tutelage I've seen many things and learned many things from that man, things that only I may know. He said looking at one man that was ready to say something but held it in when he say the boy's eye. Naruto-san, what exactly is the reason for your return now? Nara Shikaku asked, since he was curious about this boy and could feel the power come off of him in waves. I'm not exactly sure honestly. All I know is that I was brought back here to fulfill something that I need to accomplish. He said with everyone looking surprised. One man in particular that was wrapped in bandages, simply snarled at the boy before he spoke. I have one question for the brat, who was this master of yours? He asked with Naruto scowling at him but saw that it didn't faze him at all. Naruto immediately felt some respect for the man fell up inside so choice to answer the question, but not what he wanted. It's none of your concern, he died 2 years ago. He said but one woman wasn't willing to allow him to let it go unanswered. No brat, you answer the question since you have no other choice before this council. The woman, Haruno Mikira, said with Naruto looking her way and saw the woman back off. Just as I thought. All of you Haruno women like to bark but never bite. No wonder you all have a reputation for being whores. He said with Mikira giving an instant reaction. Who are you calling a whore? I am a clan head amongst this council, your superior, and you will show respect to someone as esteemed as myself. Like the guy that stuck you and gave you your stupid daughter. He said with Mikira ready to blow a fuse before she was interrupted by Danzo once more. Tell us of your teacher since he appeared to have given you something that most people would never have. He said with Naruto looking towards Sarutobi for a moment. When the old man nodded, the boy turned his head towards the bandaged man and said his name. My sensei was the war dragon, Matsukani Slayer. He said with everyone gasping in pure shock. Mikira, who was once ready to blow a fuse, felt her anger leave and was replaced by fear. YYU Maya and Tasa Sa Say Th at Man WWW is SSS Yo the woman with pink hair on the civilian council stuttered out. That's right, my sensei was a member of the Four Horsemen with me being his successor. Naruto said coldly sheathing his blade. All of you remember this and remember it good. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, the war angel, and I won't be taking anything other than respect. If you want respect from me, then you must earn it. And if not, then death will only be a privilege once I'm done with you. Naruto said before he walked out of the room. Sarutobi looked around and saw that everyone was stunned by what just transpired. Well then, I guess that meeting is over. Hiruzen said before he left the room as well. Hey everyone, I told you I would get an update in today. I know it might seem a little rushed, but it was because I was able to write it out fast enough to get it ready by today, so hey, enjoy a second update of the week. Also, I want to let all know that for the moment Naruto will just be a mentor to the other teams before I show off his fighting ability. It's funny when you write stories where the main character has gained power and when he already has power, as that makes things a hell of a lot easier to write. Lastly, I see the pairings like this. Naruto harem members still being decided, though 4 are already in. Neji, Isaribi or Sakura unsure at the moment. Lee, Sasama or Sakura unsure at the moment. Shino, Yakumo or Isaribi want to try something new. Choji, OC. Shikamaru, OC. Gaara, Sakura or Sasama unsure at the moment. Those are the pairings, though Lee, Neji, and Gaara's could change, so for now they will remain as unsure. Please vote on which one you like, and no matter what the protest on Sakura, just try it. Now let's get it on. Naruto sat within an open field near the outskirts of the village with his arms behind the back of his head. He's been here for at least 20 hours and already he was bored out of his mind. He wished that he rethink the idea of returning so soon, as the world outside these walls was where the real action was. A world of death, misery, pain, and triumph, his kind of world. The blonde's thought continued on the subject till a familiar voice spoke to him. Kit, how's the day been so far? The voice asked, which Naruto identified as Kyuubi's. It's been shit Q, almost makes me wanna throw up. He thought with the fox laughing a little before he spoke. I bet you wish you were back in snow country with Koyuki, huh? Oh yes I do. It's been a while since I gotten off a little steam. Naruto responded, knowing exactly what Kyuubi was implying. His master taught him a long time ago on how to control the urges for activity, since they start sometime around 12 to 13-year-olds. He has been feeling the call ever since that day, but luckily he could control the urges for as long as he could, until the time came when they needed to be released onto a willing participant, namely Koyuki. Too bad Kit, you got quite the girl and she's not even a shinobi. Kyuubi said with Naruto nodding. Well, after all that training I put her through, she better be at least able to fight me for 3 minutes. Naruto thought before he got up and walked up a tree. He then laid back on the tree and closed his eyes, allowing the blissful sleep to take over, but still had his guard up. He learned, if not remembered, that you trust no one in the nighttime, be it an enemy or a comrade. Besides, It wasn't like anybody would try to come after him tonight knowing that his identity was hidden for now. The next day, the blonde awoke from his slumber as he sensed the arrival of Kakashi. The blonde jumped from the tree and walked towards the two genin, who were surprised by the appearance of the blonde boy. They were about to ask him a question but were interrupted by the appearance of Kakashi, as he appeared in a puff of smoke. "Yo," was all he said with his hand waving towards his team. "You're late," Sakura screamed, forgetting that Sasuke was like 2 feet from her, so he grabbed his head as the ringing went through his ear. Naruto simply remained in his position before shaking his head and stood before his teacher along with Sakura and Sasuke standing beside him, although they kept their distance after what happened yesterday. "I'm well aware of that, Sakura, thank you," he said with a hidden smile behind his mask. "Now then, today we shall be working on your survival training," he said with Sakura groaning, Sasuke's natural-born scowl intensifying to higher limits, while Naruto, he just stood where he was. Not a single emotion playing across face. "But we already did that in the academy. Why do we have to do it again?" she said with Kakashi eye smiling at her. "Yes, you have done this in the academy, but this is of a different kind," he said as he took out 2 gold bells attached to a thin piece of string. "Your test is to capture these 2 bells from me." He then took out a timer and sat of a stump. "You have until noon to do it. Those that capture a bell will get to eat these 2 lunches of prepared, while the one that doesn't will watch while being attached to that stump," he said with the mention of food causing Sasuke and Sakura's stomachs growling, while Naruto simply looked on with boredom. "Also, what will happen is that those who don't get a bell shall be sent back to the academy for another year's worth of training," he said with Sakura looking horrified at that, as that would make her chances of being near Sasuke all the more harder than what she currently had. "But there are only 2 bells and 3 of us, how can we all pass?" she said with the man chuckling. "That's exactly the point," he said with Sakura looking more confused than before. "Remember to come at me with the intent to kill, or else you'll only result in failure," he said with Sakura looking a little horrified at that. "But sensei, aren't you afraid that you'll get hurt?" she asked, since she didn't want her Sasuke-kun to hurt him. Naruto on the other hand had to hold back a laugh he knew would come out. This girl obviously was too stupid to even realize that she was the weakest person to walk this village, yet she thought she could win. "Okay then, as I said, you have until noon to get your hold on the bells. Begin," he said with Sasuke and Sakura vanishing in sight, but Naruto remained in his spot. Kakashi was surprised by the blonde's move and wondered just what was he planning. Naruto then walked up to the masked man and removed his kimono top and jacket, revealing his black muscle shirt that was tight around his upper body. Naruto then took off the obi sash around his waist and allowed the belt to fall before he gripped his shoulders and stretched his arms before looking the man in the eye. "I want to see if you are worthy of your title," Naruto said with Kakashi smirking behind his mask as he looked on with an eye smile. "Oh, don't worry about that, for you won't land a single punch on me," he said before he wound up regretting his words, as Naruto appeared before him with his arm back. Kakashi had only a 1/10 of a second to raise his arm as Naruto's fist slammed into it. Naruto then slid his hand along the tall man's arm and landed on the grass and sent an upside-down kick to Kakashi's stomach region. The copy ninja jumped into the air and back-flipped towards the edge of the lake behind him. He watched as the blonde did a few more spins on his right hand before he landed on all fours, resembling the Inuzuka clan's all fours jutsu. The blonde boy snarled at the man before he stood up and flashed through a couple of seals before calling out, "Fire release," Immortal Phoenix Flame Missile, and unleashed his fire technique towards Kakashi, who stood shocked at that. Those hand signs, he went through them so fast that even I couldn't see them, he thought before seeing the flames turn into a phoenix and charged for him. The silver-haired Junin quickly jumped away from the phoenix, as it crashed into the water behind him. Before the man even got a chance to breathe, Naruto was back on him, sending a palm thrust into Kakashi's chest. The man screamed in pain before Naruto continued on the offensive. The blonde sent a forward strike to Kakashi's face. The masked man blocked with an open palm and sent an elbow into Naruto's face only to see the boy turn into a puff of smoke. Shadow clones. He thought before he turned to find Naruto charging at him with his right arm held back. Naruto sent the fist forward, which Kakashi dodged by doing a flip over it and landed behind the boy. He then saw to his shock the boy stop his charge before performing a backflip of his own and nailed the masked man right in his head. Kakashi staggered back for a moment before he stepped in the wrong spot. It was then that 5 clones of Naruto appeared before the masked man with swords drawn and held in different positions. One had his blade near Kakashi jugular vein, another had it near Kakashi kidney area, a third had his near Kakashi stomach, the next had it near the Mon's spinal cord, and the last held his in a stabbing position in front of his heart. Kakashi couldn't help but say it, he was impressed by the boy's skill. "Well done, Naruto, it appears that you truly are strong," he said before the clones released their hold on the boy and disappeared in a puff of smoke. Kakashi then called the other 2 genin to their spot, which they did without a moment to waste. "Well, it appears that you two fail," Kakashi said as he reached for the bells on his hip but saw that they were gone. "Looking for these, Kakashi?" Naruto said with the bells jingling in his hand. "How did you?" Funny thing about the wind element, it moves in so many ways, yet when in the hands of its master nothing is impossible. Not even making a small wind blade that is virtually invisible to the eye and even more so to the chakra sense, he said, pointing to the small cut on Kakashi's pant leg. The masked man looked down and saw to his amazement that there was indeed a small cut on his pants. He must have done it during the lecture and grabbed them while he was fighting me. Truly amazing, he thought before seeing the boy toss the 2 bells to the genin behind him. Now I'm sure you knew what the next part is. I may not particularly like them, but they are useful for the moment, so might as well use the opportunity, Naruto said with Kakashi looking shocked before he shrugged his shoulders. "Well then I guess you 3 pass," he said with Sasuke and Sakura looking shocked by that. "But sensei, Sasuke-kun and I didn't do anything, so how do we pass?" she asked as all she did was take the bell that sadly neither she nor her Sasuke-kun earned. "Because Naruto showed teamwork by fighting me and allowing you two to be safe, then passing the object of the mission to his teammates to make sure that it's secure. In this case all he had to do was say that he fought for you and got your bells for you so that you could be strong enough to defend yourself. It shows that Naruto is worthy of being the second leader of this group when I'm not here," he said with Sakura looking surprised before she spoke up. "But sensei, wouldn't Sasuke-kun be a better team leader? I mean, he is an Uchiha and he is the strongest member on this team," she said with Naruto and Kakashi sweat dropping. They were wondering if her mother got drunk while she was pregnant with her, as she had to be the dumbest bitch on the planet to think that. Although Naruto was the only one with the balls to say it aloud. "I don't know what's more pathetic, you or the fact that you're regarded as the smart person that graduated and that your mother actually gave birth to you," Naruto said to Sakura, which caused the girl to blow her stack and respond. "Shut up, Naruto, just what do you know? It's not like you can do better than Sasuke-kun or me, you just caught sensei off his game, that's all. And don't you ever call my mother again or else I'll hurt you so bad, you'll beg Sasuke-kun to stop me," she said before seeing Naruto turn his gaze onto her, his eyes telling many stories to the girl that quickly made her regret saying anything to the boy. "You truly believe that shit, huh? You like to think that you are stronger than me or that you're precious, Sasuke-kun, can do everything as if he was God himself, yet what has either of you done to show it? I on the other hand have seen things, done things, and gone through things that would make you 2 little kitties wet your beds. You are the last person to talk as if you can do something, as quite frankly you couldn't even be able to beat a monkey with Down syndrome and terminal cancer," he said with the girl gasping and looked to be on the verge of tears with Naruto scowling, obviously showing no form of sympathy to the pink-haired girl. This girl was weak, and if she wanted to be a shinobi then she would have to grow up from her little fantasy world. Just like all you Haruno-s, you all want to bark up a big game, but when the chips are down you wanna cry to a man to support you. No wonder you all have a reputation that you proudly uphold to this day. He said with Sakura's tears flowing more, but her emotions continued to show. Shut up. I'm Nada and I won't let you talk about my family like that, she said while hoping to knock some form of chivalry into the blonde boy. However, Naruto had different intentions in mind, since this girl was in need of a reality dose and quick. Oh yes you are, just like that whore you call a mother. Your whole clan is made of nothing but former prostitutes and pimps, but none are more famous than your mother. She probably got stuck more times than the Uchiha's father with men, Sasuke growled at that, but deep down knew it was true. In fact, I would not be surprised if you are the result of that whore's actions. Just think about it, the Haruno clan, holder of the cycle, one whore gives birth to a future, he said with the girl losing her cool and charged at the blonde boy. She would have tried to punch him had Kakashi not stepped in front of her and grabbed her extended arm. He then shook his head to tell her to stop, which she did, but the tears wouldn't stop coming out. Kakashi then sent a glare at the blonde, who responded with one of his own. Naruto, you went too far this time, he said with Naruto looking at the man with a glare that caused the Shinigami to shit himself if given the chance. Look Hatake, I don't let children think that they can play an adult game with childish ideals. If she wants to prove me wrong about what I know about her clan, then she will have to earn my respect. However, until then I will not stop and call her whatever I want to call her, he said before sparing one more glance at the still crying Sakura, who looked his way only to find a sneer come her way. Pathetic whore, Naruto said before he vanished in a whirl of feathers. That last comment set her off the edge and caused her to bawl her eyes out on Hokage's office. Within the office of the Sandaime Hokage several shinobi could be seen standing around the Sandaime's desk. Each of the shinobi were of Junin rank as well, while one, Yumino Iruka, was a mere chunin. The reason for the gathering of powerful shinobi was to reveal which of them if any had passed their team. Now then we will begin this meeting, beginning with the Junin for Team 1. Team 1 fails, stated one of the Junin with a senbon in his mouth before he stepped back. Team 2 fails, said another who coughed before stepping back. Team 3 fails. Team 4 fails. Team 5 fails. Team 6 fails, said a female with short purple hair and brown eyes. All eyes then went towards the next person in line, who cursed at that. He knew that his reputation would take a hit as soon as the words left his mouth. Team 7 passes, Kakashi said with the results being instantaneous, as everything came to a halt with all eyes turned to the silver-haired Junin in wonder. Kakashi sighed, as he knew that this was coming after he passed the team. He has long since built up a reputation as a hard failing every team he got, and this time he actually passed one. Somewhere deep inside, the man knew that this was never going to leave him. Must have been because of the Uchiha, stated one of the previous Junin. Sarutobi silenced this man with a glare before motioning to the next person to speak up. Team 8 passes, stated Kurenai before stepping back. Team 10 passes, stated Asuma finishing things off. Sarutobi Hiruzen then nodded as he checked off the 3 teams that passed. Once that was done, he dismissed the ones that no longer held teams under them and kept the new senseis to this new generation of rookies. Now then, this part is supposed to be the briefing of how your teams did during your exams, and that way I'll have a better understanding of where they currently are, he said with another sheet of paper in hand before he pointed to his son. The man nodded before he stepped up to address his father. My team passed on a good standing. All 3 of them didn't exactly see eye to eye at first, but today they were completely different than normal. Shikamaru would normally act lazy and ignore the drill, but today he was a strategic mastermind, helping Ino and Choji set me up and get me to surrender the test to them. Choji also acted differently than normal, as he didn't even bother trying to eat his snacks, only focused on the test and the test alone. Ino, however, was a light that shined in the dark, as she acted as a decisive leader and guided the team throughout the test. For some reason, they all had a fire that awoken in them yesterday after few choice words from Naruto-san. He finished with the others shocked by that. Hiruzen then nodded his head before pointing towards Kurenai. My team passed on good standings as well. They acted in a unit with even Kiba listening to them and Shino giving a larger helping hand in the test. Kiba is used to using his dog partner in everything he does, but that is not a negative about him. He was still able to fight with seriousness that I never thought existed in him. Apparently, after getting hishanded to him yesterday, he snapped out of his arrogance and fought without his arrogance showing. Shino proved to be the leader of the team, as he was able to create a strategy to help catch me off guard and accomplish the goal I placed for them. Hinata also did well, but she surprised me today when she came with a smile on her face and said, "Tu-san apologized to me and promised to do better." It appears that whatever Naruto-san did must have knocked some sense into that mon's head. Kurenai said with everyone once again looking shocked, although Hiruzen simply smirked at that, having seen the reason firsthand. Last came Kakashi, who already stepped up and spoke. My team passed, but only one of them is truly ready to be a ninja. Naruto did all the work, all the fighting, and was the only person that took the meaning of the exam to heart and utilized it to the fullest. Sasuke and Sakura just sat in the trees and watched as Naruto fought me and captured the bells all on his own. The kid then gave them the bells since he knew that he had to do it, but I could tell that he didn't want to do it at all. He finished with everyone looking at the man in shock. It appears that Naruto-kun has been taught well over the last 7 years. He said with the 3 Junin nodding their heads at that. Whoever taught him was also able to teach him how to properly use his words for motivation. Hokage-sama, where did Naruto go, or better yet who taught him? Kakashi asked along with the other Junin nodding their head. I'm afraid that is for Naruto to tell you, as he made me promise that nobody outside of myself knows unless he says so. Sarutobi said with the 3 Junin nodding, but were now determined to find out for themselves. Kakashi simply because he wanted to know more about his student's past teacher, Asuma just out of pure respect for the boy, and Kurenai for the chance to learn of her clan. The old man then dismissed the 3 Junin before going back to his paperwork. Elsewhere, Naruto now sat on the roof of his new apartment building the Hokage gave him the keys to. Although he planned to buy a bigger place once, he found the right one. It was a good-sized 2-bedroom 1.5 bathroom AN. In case you're wondering, a half bathroom is one without a shower, with a large open kitchen and living room area. There was also a balcony for the apartment, seeing as it was on the 14th floor of the building, giving him a large view of the village. The boy knew that he could enjoy this place, but the power output of the shinobi here was making him sick to his stomach. However, it was not all too bad, as he could get a kick out of being here for the moment. His thoughts were interrupted when he felt a familiar presence behind him. He prepared to grab one of his sword but decided against it when he smelt the scent in the air. I take it you're ready to learn of your clan, Kurenai-san? Naruto asked as he turned to face the woman, who gasped slightly before she shook it off. Naruto immediately noticed the sheathed sword in her hands, and by the looks of things, it appeared to be a katana. Yes, I am, if you will teach me, Naruto-san. She asked with Naruto standing to his feet with a small smirk on his face. Very well then, and drop the suffix, as that is only for people who just met each other. You're now my student, so only call me by my name, he said before he took off, with Kurenai following him closely, inwardly cheering as she was going to learn about her clan. Unknown area. Naruto landed in an open field large enough for the training he had planned, with Kurenai now standing before him. The blonde then instructed her to sit down before he spoke. Now I'm not going to lie to you, Kurenai, for I will not go easy on you because you're a female. When I train someone, they better be 10 times more prepared for anything I dish out towards them. Do I have your word that you will follow all that I say and take my teachings to heart instead of just making me waste my time? He asked her, with the black-haired woman nodding her head. Her face was all serious at this point, so Naruto could tell that she meant what she said. The boy then pulled out a blank piece of paper and tossed it to the woman, who looked at it in surprise before seeing the boy speak again. I want to see which elements you hold. The Uahi clan was very famous for their power over fire and wind, so I need to see if you hold those two elements. He said with the woman nodding before pumping her chakra into the paper. Then, like she already knew, the paper burst into flames but then split in half, shocking her. Naruto smirked at that before he spoke. Looks like you'll be learning a lot more than just sword techniques. He said before he began his tale. Now then, allow me to begin with the tale of your clan. The Uahi clan was once one of the clans that stood amongst the legendary Yume no Jusenkan, Order of 13 Swords, and were called the Phoenix Tamers. They always took their swords not as a way of fighting but a way of having the ultimate companion that they could trust with their lives. During the grass-rain conflict, they fought with grass due to their standards of fighting besides one with honor. They were referred to as the warriors with the partner of flame, as they literally fought while engulfed in a torrent of flames. The end result was a Megakure nearly losing most if not all of their forces, and was forced to retreat that day to repair the damages done to their village and reproduce new shinobi to take the place of the massive hole that they were dealt with. Naruto said with Kurenai taking in this info while amazed by the power her clan once held. Naruto then continued, after that day it's unknown, but it's said that they were attacked by an unknown island and were decimated by its destructive power. It was also said that none of them survived, but one could very well be out there to continue the legacy of their clan. That person will have to be you if you want their legacy to become as it was foretold. He said with the nodding her head. Naruto then got up along with Kurenai and drew his sword. Now then, I will start by teaching you how to use the basics of the style before moving on to the techniques. He said with Kurenai nodding before she drew her sword and copied Naruto's moves. Later on, Naruto now carried a tired-out Uahi Kurenai bridal style to his apartment. The woman did well for her first time holding a sword, although he was sure that she would need far more work than what he was giving her. He determined that she never truly trained her body like she should have, as her reflexes and speed were anything but novice level, so he would have to buy her some weights and train her more on the basics before he moved on. As Kurenai held onto his neck, the blonde boy couldn't help but like the way she was sleeping soundly and had to say that it was cute, but he quickly took those thoughts from his head and landed on the balcony of his apartment. He opened the balcony door and walked her into his room since he decided to use the guest bedroom as a storage room, but didn't mind giving the black-haired woman his bed for the night. As he walked into the room, he laid the woman down on his bed and placed the covers over her before walking out of the room, until Kurenai began to stir and look around her area. What? Where am I? She asked with Naruto responding. You're at my place for the night. You did well today, but tomorrow we will be upping the ante a bit. He said with Kurenai looking at him for a moment. But where will you sleep? I can't take your bed like this. She said as she would have either gotten out of the bed or at least offered to share it with him. Whoa, where did that come from? She asked herself but didn't digress from the point. It's alright Kurenai, for it wouldn't feel right to make you walk home after all that you've went through today. Just go to sleep, I'll be fine. He said before leaving the room and Kurenai placing her head back on the pillows. Good night then, she said before falling asleep. The next day, the black-haired woman awoke with a loud yawn and looked around to find that she was still in the same place as before, meaning that it wasn't a dream. She got out of the bed and decided to look around the bedroom for a moment. She saw that the boy wasn't big on decoration, as the only thing about his room that stood out was the comfortable queen-sized bed with the dresser and mirror on the front. The rest of the room was covered in nothing but seals and formulas that she didn't get one bit. She then walked over to his closet and opened the door, only to find that the boy also wasn't one for clothing either, as he only had 2 kimonos in the closet. One she knew was meant to be worn in battle and the other was more of a dressy type. She had to say that he did have a taste for design, as the kimono was a beautiful mixture of black and red with a full white moon on the back along with a small red fox with 9 tails curled under it and a swirl pattern on the moon. Her thoughts on the outfit were interrupted when a smell reached her nose. She walked out of the room and towards the kitchen where she found Naruto making breakfast, but that wasn't what caught her attention. What did was his current attire of only black boxer shorts, exposing his muscled and scared upper body to her. She also saw that the boy had twin tattoo sleeves on his arms going all the way down to his wrist and another on his back that looked like some kind of seal. I take it that you're enjoying the sight, Naruto said before looking to Kurenai's direction and saw that the woman was currently blushing up a storm. He then placed the food on the plates and set it on the counter connecting the rooms, which gave Kurenai a view of another tattoo of a 6-point star on his chest. Come on and get it, I know you're hungry, he said before going into his fridge for a drink. Kurenai didn't need to be told twice, as her stomach growled loudly before she walked over to the plate he set for her. She then saw him place a glass on her table and fill it with some orange juice before putting some in his own cup then throwing it out of the balcony since it was empty. Why did you do that, Naruto? She asked while eating the food, which she had to say was very good. She then looked up to find the boy also eating the food with a shrug. That's how I roll, Kurenai, he said before getting back to his food. Kurenai then asked her next question that was on her mind. Naruto, why is it that you have so many tattoos? I never seen so many on anybody, much less a 13-year-old. She asked with Naruto beginning to stir his food a little before he spoke. These are something that I've gained along my time training. I can't exactly go into detail of these as I haven't known you long enough to divulge my secrets with you. But I do hope for the day to come when I do tell you, he said, surprised at himself for saying that but chalked it up as a small impulse of flirting to a pretty woman. Said pretty woman wasn't sure, but if she had to guess she would say that he kind of flirted with her on that part. She decided to take it to a different direction or else she would be losing a chance to get stronger. Do you have any other clothes to wear besides those kimonos? She asked with Naruto stopping before he spoke. No, I don't like carrying more than one outfit to fight in, it will take less time to get it clean than to clean an entire closet worth of clothes, he said before he finished his breakfast and saw that Kurenai finished hers. So like a gentleman, he took her plate and cleaned it in his sink while Kurenai continued to drink her orange juice before she spoke again. Well, we need to change that, Naruto. If you want, I could show you around the village and maybe help you find some clothes or something, she said while inwardly hoping he would say yes, but why she would never know. Naruto on the other hand was confused by that, as he was pretty sure that the woman just asked him out. He would feel the need to turn it down and get to training, but maybe he should venture into this. I guess I can since I got nothing better to do, he said with Kurenai nodding. What else could you do today? She asked out of curiosity. Go train with my team, Naruto said before creating a shadow clone. Go to the team meeting and disperse yourself once it's all over. Hitaki is going to be late again, so don't get there early and by all means don't talk to the two weaklings, they aren't worth your time, he said with the clone nodding and hopped out of the apartment. Naruto then walked over to his room to get changed while Kurenai silently watched. 2 hours later, Naruto was now walking through the forest area, still trying to find house to live in. He just finished shopping with Kurenai and together they bought a lot of stuff. They hit about 5 stores today and each one they left with a lot of stuff for both Naruto and Kurani. They each bought a total of 20 black, blue, red, and white t-shirts, 20 black, blue, and brown pants, and a few jackets to go with each outfit. Naruto made a complaint that these were not clothes meant for a fight, but Kurenai reassured him that they were simple casual clothing that he would need so he would not stand out in front of everyone. He also noticed something as they walked down the street as they received a lot of looks going towards them in confusion and curiosity. Kurenai felt a bit embarrassed as she heard some civilians claiming that she was dating someone younger than her, although she was sure that she would like it. Naruto did know that the time would come when he would have to change his battle outfit, seeing as how he has been wearing the same one for well over 3 years and not a single change came to it. Once he settled down with all this stuff, then he would go find some new battle clothes, but at the moment the boy's attention was on Kurenai. Once he dropped her off to her apartment, he settled out on his quest to find a new home around the area. The apartment only held a 6-month lease on it, so he needed to find a property and purchase it fast. Unknown to many people, Naruto was also a former mercenary and gained quite the image amongst the black market and the underground shinobi world. There he was referred to as many things: the Black Seed, the Shadow Striker, or his personal favorite, the Angel of Death. But Naruto wouldn't pay that much thought, as he made quite the fortune in assassinations and working under the rulers of the villages he visited. He also gained a large number of hearts in the form of princesses, when he saved them from kidnapping attempts or from being held captive. One was even bold enough to kiss him for what he's done, while the others would blush at his appearance. However, no matter how pretty they were, and some were just flat out gorgeous in his eyes, he would only be with someone that could fight. His danger senses went off as he hopped backwards from his position. Barely a second later did a large explosion came in front of him, which caused the boy to sigh deeply at his ordeal. He needed to stop thinking and walking at the same time. It caused him to slightly lower his guard. When he looked up from the smoke clearing, he saw a man standing with his fist on the ground. He then saw 3 more genin appear behind him, with one looking just like the man before him. That wasn't bad, youthful one. Your attention was off, yet you were still able to dodge my punch. The man said with his large eyebrows looking into his eyes. Who are you? I never seen you before. He asked, with the man smiling at him and doing a weird pose. My name is Maida Guy. These 3 behind me are my genin squad: Rock Lee, Tenshin Tenadin, and Hyuga Neji. What would your name be, youthful one? He asked, with Naruto responding. Uzumaki Naruto. He said, with Maida Guy looking confused. I heard your name before, Naruto-san, but that was years ago. What happened to you that would cause your unyouthful departure? He asked, with the other genin listening to him intently. I've been around the elemental countries with my former master. I trained under his tutelage for the past 5 years before he died, but I didn't let that stop me from becoming what I am today. He said, with Guy and Lee looking at him with tears in their eyes. Tenten was simply eyeballing his swords like fat guy in a meat buffet. Neji, however, chose to examine the boy with his Byakugan and was surprised by what he saw. Your chakra levels are beyond what should be the normal standard for a genin. How were you able to obtain such levels of chakra? He asked, with Naruto looking at him for a moment until he spoke. That was due to all the hard work I put my body through and all the fights I experienced outside of the village, although I would have to say that you appear to be on edge with my presence. He said, with the Hyuga prodigy looking surprised by that. What do you mean exactly? He said, with Naruto walking up to him, his eyes looking very critical at the white-eyed boy. I mean that your aura speaks untold amounts of self-loathing and hatred, and some of it mainly turned towards one person. If I had to guess, I would say that you blame someone for something that was out of their control. He said, with Neji scowling at the boy. And just what do you know? You don't know a single about me. Neji said, but Naruto kept his eye on him. I see many things about you that even you don't know, and I also that you are strong on the outside but very weak on the inside. He said, with Neji snarling before he brought his arm backwards to send a palm strike to Naruto's chest. Shut up, he said, sending the palm forward, only to be shocked when Naruto caught it and held it 3 centimeters from his chest area that held his heart. Naruto then released Neji and stared him down, with Neji starting to sweat nervously but held his ground. You do know that when you send an attack towards another fighter, it means that you wish to issue a challenge. Very well, then I will accept it. Naruto said before sending a right fist to Neji's stomach, forcing the boy to double over in pain while being lifted 2 inches off the ground. Naruto then vanished and reappeared, executing a right kick to Neji's chest area, which connected and sent the boy flying towards the field. Tenten, Lee, and Guy were shocked by what just happened before seeing Naruto walk towards the area Neji currently resided. The boy coughed loudly to refill his lungs with air before looking to see Naruto walking towards him, with his kimono off, thus revealing his black sleeveless shirt and exposed his tattooed arms. The white-eyed boy scowled loudly before he charged at Naruto, intent on taking him out, but would soon learn why you never underestimate an opponent. He sent a forward palm at Naruto, who simply dodged to the right before sending another that was dodged again. He continued to send out palm strikes, until Naruto got bored by this and decided to finally get involved in order to end this charade. Neji then sent a forward palm strike, which Naruto dodged once more but this time had his arm held back. Naruto's fist then glowed a bright purple before he sent it forward, calling out, "Devil Fist." When Neji felt the punch hit him, it was as if he felt the speed of a freight train hitting him at 100 miles per hour. Neji soon felt his body soaring through the air before his back hit the ground and skidded along the grass before coming to a complete stop, his jaw hurting like a bitch. Naruto, seeing that the boy was slowly trying to get up, he prepared for his last move. Naruto then took a taijutsu stance, with his left arm forward in an open palm facing the ground and his right arm edged back into his ribcage area. His legs were slightly spread apart and were bent a little like he was preparing for a small charge. Naruto then closed his eyes as he began to focus his energy into his right arm, preparing for one of his favorite taijutsu techniques. When Neji got up to his feet, Naruto's eyes snapped open and glowed a bright radiant blue before he spoke, "Sacred Dragon Style, first technique, Dragon Scar." He called out before charged at the Hyuga prodigy with untold amounts of speed. When he neared Naruto, sent a right knee thrust into the boy's stomach and a followed with a left. "First," he said before following that with 3 quick left-right combo to the boy's stomach before sending an uppercut with his left arm. "Call," he said again, before he started to spin his arm in front of Neji's location, which started to show a flow of wind forming in that area. When Naruto felt it was enough, he sent his right arm through the ring, which acted and formed around the boy's arm before turning into the shape of a dragon, Death Strike. Naruto said before sending it towards Neji's windpipe. Before it could reach the white-eyed boy, he stopped mere inches from the other boy's neck, thus stopping the technique. The dragon then vanished from his arm along with the wind, before he brought it down to find Neji looking him in the eye. "Why did you stop your technique?" he asked with Naruto not responding, only to do some quick seals before holding his right arm, causing some green chakra to form around his hand before placing it on Neji's arm. The boy began to feel the healing effects of the technique until all was gone and he was perfectly new again. Naruto then removed his hand and looked the Hyuga clan member dead in the eye. "Because while most like to do they talking through their mouths, I like to do mine through my fist, and that speaks louder than what you can ever say. I can see that you have trained yourself hard all of your life, and I can also see that you're still suffering from a great lose you had over your life. I see massive potential in you, Neji, as much as I seen in a few others within these walls, but you'll never go places with your current mindset. I can see that your time is coming when your skills will be recognized for all that they are worth, but if you want that day to come, then you would have to put your past where it belongs," he said with the Hyuga looking at him in disbelief before he felt something come his way. A smile, and it was not his regular fake one either, this was a true genuine smile. "Thank you, Naruto, I truly needed that," he said with Naruto smirking slightly. Behind them, the boys' teammates were beaming at this scene. Lee was practically shouting, "Hallelujah!" to heaven, while Tenten simply smiled at the scene. Guy, however, was doing something totally different as he bared his shiny white teeth. "Yosh! Your flames of youth burn brightly, Naruto-kun. You have managed to make Neji-kun see the light," Guy shouted. Naruto then felt that he better give credit where credit was due, as he felt the pain from one of Neji's hit that managed to get him. "No problem, although I would have to say that if you were to hit one of those strikes you would have won," he said with Neji's smile turning into shock. "Really? But I barely got a hit on you," he said before seeing Naruto revealed his right arm, which had a red spot over his upper muscle area. "Check again." If it wasn't for the quick dropping of weight at the last minute, I would have been taken out by you. He said with the boy smirking at the acknowledgement he received. He then saw his team get closer to him to ask questions that he knew were coming. Naruto-san, those were impressive techniques, can you tell us what they were? Lee asked with Naruto nodding. The techniques I used is a personal technique I invented, and the second is part of my taijutsu style called the Sacred Dragon style. He said with Lee looking shocked by that. Tenten then took the next opportunity to ask a question. How did you create such a technique? I never seen anything like that before. She said before Naruto smirked her way. It's rather easy, to be honest with you. I've created a lot of technique in my time out of the village, though they all range around elemental technique and a few on chakra alone, like the Devil Fist. I've recently finished a new instant lightning technique that can work with anyone that has a lightning affinity. He said before stepping up to demonstrate, already knowing that they would like to see it. He quickly breathed in some air before holding out his arms at shoulder length and width. He then held out his index and middle fingers on both hands before he began the process. He brought his right arm down slowly, which showed an electrical charge following his fingers before he held them up near his head. He then repeated the process with left arm with the same effects occurring. Naruto then brought his fingers together near his waist area, allowing the two static energies to meet before sending his right arm forward, calling out, "Lightning Release, Static Edge." As he called the name of the technique out, the lightning left his fingers and flew towards a tree. When the lightning hit the tree, it exploded into flames, and before it sent tiny chunks of bark around the area. Naruto then doused the flames with a small water jutsu before looking at the group of 4 behind him, staring at the destruction with their mouths agape. The point of the technique is not the power it holds but the effectiveness of surprise that it utilizes. When in the hands of a skilled lightning master, he could do far more with this technique than I could. Naruto said before everyone clapped in appreciation for showing them the technique. Tenten then walked up to him and was finding her curiosity of the boy increasing moment by moment. Are you skilled with your swords, Naruto-san? Tenten asked with Naruto nodding. Do you know a kenjutsu style? She asked, hiding the desire to learn his style quite well. Naruto knew why she wanted to know, but felt that since she asked nicely he would explain. These swords are the legacy of my sensei. He invented them for me when I was 8, and from that day forth they haven't left my side. He said before pulling out his first blade. The others moved in for a closer look at the beautiful sword Naruto held. The sword was all white in its handle, guard, and blade that glowed a faint white hue. On the handle going down looked to be sapphire diamonds that glowed a radiant blue color. Naruto then pulled out his second sword and showed that it was the exact opposite from the other blade, as where the first blade was all white the second was all black. I call these swords Phantom and Devil. While most would use the standard one-blade styles, I am use a two-blade style that is very rare amongst the shinobi world. While I know some one-bladed styles, I really prefer my personal two-bladed style. He said before he looked at all 3 of the genin before a smirk came to his face. In fact, I think I will be teaching all 3 of you some of those styles, as you all look to have potential in 3 of the ones that I know. He said with the genin looking shocked at that. You know more than one style? She asked with Naruto smirking. No true master in anything would stick to one style, as learning another would help in strengthening your own. He said before an Anbu wearing a cat mask poofed into existence. Naruto then turned his head to acknowledge the ANB, who had long purple hair that reached her back. Uzumaki-san, Hokage-sama requests your presence immediately. She said with Naruto nodding before he turned to Team 9.